Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to come to the floor with two colleagues, a colleague from Minnesota and a colleague from Oregon, to speak about the damage created by the Republicans' insistence on looking at just one side of the equation, failing to understand what businesses need to move forward in the next 28 minutes or so. As my good friend from Alabama leaves the floor, I want to say that I've enjoyed working with him on many issues. We've been shoulder to shoulder advocating for Gulf Coast restoration and many other issues, but I have to strongly disagree with some of the points that he's just made, and we'll go into those in just a moment. Part of the problem with the senator from Alabama and other senators on that side is that when they speak to the American people on this issue, they only talk about one side of the equation, and that is spending. They never, ever, ever talk about revenues. And anybody, any family, any individual, any business, any high school student, any college student understands, like the commercial that's running on television now that talks about equations. Equations have two sides, not one. There's a spending side and there's a revenue side. So if your family budget is out of whack, you're spending too much, you're not taking in enough money, you could get a third job and fix that problem by bringing in more money to your budget, or a second job, or a part-time job, and bring in more revenue, and that problem is solved. Or you could not get another job and cut back spending all the way down to your income and solve your problem. The problem with the other side is they are disingenuous. They do not want to be truthful with the American people and say that not only do we have a spending problem, which all Democrats agree with, but we also have a revenue problem. And that's why we're on this floor fighting today. And I want to show beyond a shadow of a doubt the truth about what I'm speaking about. This is data from CBO and OMB. This isn't Democratic data. This shows discretionary defense spending, all other spending, and mandatory programs for 10 years. In 10 years, from 2001 until today, 10 years later, defense spending has increased $364 billion, 73%. And that is because we've had two wars and any number of defense and security issues. We can debate were those right or not. We've spent 73% more money adjusted for inflation. For mandatory programs, the increase has gone up in 10 years 310%. That's Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. This is the driver. This is the budget buster. Now, there are all sorts of solutions to that problem. Unfortunately, we're not talking about any of them today. But the push on the spending is coming from mandatory programs. What the Republicans fail to tell people, which makes me so angry and should make everyone angry, is that all other spending in the federal government has remained flat. 0% increase in 10 years if you adjust for inflation. Zero. Not a 2% increase, not a 3% increase. Now, these are the facts. It's also true that we are spending more money, 25% of GDP, higher than any time since World War II. But that spending is being driven by defense and mandatory. But what do they want to cut? What are they demanding to be cut today? They are demanding this line item with agriculture, health, education, respite care for the elderly. This is what they want to cut. This is why Democrats are saying, wait a minute, take a couple of steps back. That's what this fight is really about. Now, in addition to waging this fight, you would think this is a big fight to have. We would have it in the safest place possible. Could I have order, please? We would be having it in the safest place possible. You know, in the old Western movies, when the two guys want to shoot it out, they say, meet me on the edge of town. Do these guys meet you on the edge of town? No. You know where they meet us? Right on Main Street, where small business and big business and self-employed have been struggling for years, coming out of the greatest recession that in large measure they helped to create. Where do they want to stage this fight? On Main Street. That's what this fight is about. They could have chosen any place for this battle. But where did they choose it? They chose it over raising the debt ceiling, which if we don't fix in the next 72 hours is going to raise interest on every business. I'm already getting piles of letters from Louisiana that I'm going to put into this record from small business owners pleading with us to come to a deal because they're holding the economy hostage. Has anybody read the newspapers this morning? It is full of cartoons. Republicans holding the economy hostage. They're not holding Barack Obama hostage. They're not holding Democrats hostage. They're not holding the federal government hostage. They've decided to fight the battle on Main Street, holding business, economic growth hostage, and they think that that's a compromise or a fair fight. This hostage isn't strong enough to survive this siege. Do you ever hear any one of them say that perhaps we need to raise a penny or two or three? Absolutely no. Now, there are senators that have agreed to do so, but they haven't been as vocal as they possibly could be. I am honored to serve with many good Republicans that understand that this equation has two sides, both taking spending down in the right ways and raising revenues. And let me get one more fact out there, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. I understand corporate tax rates are higher than some other countries in the world, and our corporations are having some tough times and some businesses. But I'm going to submit data to this record that shows that the top 400 companies in this country are not paying a 35% rate. They're not paying a 34% rate. Their practical rate is 17%. Why would that be the case? Because this tax code is full of loopholes for special interest that many of them on the other side think is justified. So we're not going to be able to solve all these problems today, but I wanted to come to the floor on behalf of businesses, small businesses and large, and say, when the Republicans start talking about both sides of the equation, these Democrats, including myself, will walk up and negotiate. In the meantime, we're going to work hard to find a deal that works for the American people. And one solution that will work for the American people is not to have to repeat this 4 months from now. And I'm going to conclude with this. Just a few months ago, we were getting letters from the other side saying business needs certainty. Business needs to know what taxes they're going to pay. They need to know certainty. And then all of a sudden today, this side is arguing that we have to go through this debate 4 months from now. I'm telling you, this hostage will not survive their siege. We have to fix this for the long term now. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague from Minnesota, who's going to talk about the businesses in her state and what she's hearing from businesses in her state and why this is so grossly unfair from Republicans that want to bring this economy to its knees, and they're doing a really good job of it. And I turn the floor over to the senator from Minnesota.
From Louisiana.
Mr. President, thank you. The senator from Alaska is here to finish out this segment, which is focusing on the difficulties that business is going to have. And I thank the senator from Minnesota for joining us for this segment. I just wanted to get one more thing on the record before yielding to the senator from Alaska. I said the spending is high, 25% of GDP. Everyone acknowledges that. We're working hard to get it down. But I want to put in the record that revenues coming into the Treasury are the lowest since World War II at 14%. Now, we don't have revenues in this solution because Democrats have compromised and conceded on this point, which is a very difficult compromise for us to make when faced with the truth of the situation. But in trying to compromise, we have done that. We have not been met halfway, and I hope that the minority leader will re-engage with the majority leader, having said last night he didn't feel like he wanted to engage with the majority leader to try to come to a compromise because businesses are depending on it. And finally, I want to put into the record a portion of an excellent column in the Washington Post today to capstone my remarks. And I thank the senator from Alaska, who's been an absolutely outstanding champion for small business, not only in Alaska but around the nation, to talk with us about this short-term, repeat, 6 months uncertainty and how damaging that will be to businesses in Alaska. And I thank the senator for joining us.